Hey, everybody. Dr. Adam Vega here with the Nifty Thrifty Dentists Podcast, where we're bringing on a bunch of successful dentists that we all know and we've experienced that are communicated with in the groups.
So before we get into our episode, I'd like to give a shout out to Mango Voice, one of our premier sponsors. Mango Voice offers voice over IP phones for dental practices, but it's so much more. Go check them out and make sure you ask for the Nifty Thrifty deal.
Today, I have Dr. Robert Jungman.
Jungman with the J.
How did you get in with these groups originally, man? I mean, how long have you been on all of these Facebook groups?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, when did Dental Clinical Pearls start? That was like the first one way back. I feel like I might have been in residency at the time when it was, like a couple thousand people, and now it's like 50,000. Yeah. And then kind of evolves over time from one group to the next. And the business of dentistry was a big one for me. They kind of helped right about the same time I was getting into management of the practice. So that it just kind of was a natural fit for me to be involved with that.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. They all kind of happened. I think I graduated in 17 and I was never on Facebook in school, right? You had people in class, on Facebook doing that. I just never got into it. And then I got out in the real world and just started realizing the value. Like you mentioned, I remember Nachos was an early one, business of dentistry, clinical pearls, and then obviously Nifty's been around for a long time as well. So I think that's kind of how a lot of relationships were made there, right? And so I've learned a ton. We see you doing stuff all the time. So give me a little bit of background about you. How'd you get into dentistry? What are you doing now? How'd you get into your practice?
Sure. So I work with my parents. My mom and dad have been practicing dentistry since 1980, 81. They met in dental school and moved to Escondido, California, which is just about 30 minutes away from where my dad grew up in East County, San Diego. They, obviously my whole childhood, they've been doing dentistry. And for probably since I was middle school, my goals, just what do you want to be when you grow up? And every kid has their, I want to be an astronaut, a fireman, or whatever. Everybody has something that they want to be. And at the time, I think the first thing that I actually said that really meant something was I want to be an orthodontist. And right about that time in middle school, going through ortho, and I looked at it as, hey, this guy is really well respected in the community. He's got a really fun office. Everybody knows him. Everybody loves him. There's no blood. There's no pain. It's a happy environment. You make lots of money. Your assistants do all the work for you. What is not to love about that job? It's, very similar to my parents' job, although I didn't ever really need much dental work as a kid. I could see and feel kind of like the profession that they'd come home from work. They were happy. They'd talk about their jobs over the dinner table. Hey, I saw this patient, that patient today. And it kind of afforded us a life that we were happy with. So it just kind of seemed like, sure, let's aim for that. And if I ever change my mind and want to do something else, then we'll go that way. But I never wanted to be that person that was just kind of lost and clueless, and I'm just going through the motions. I don't know what I want to be. I'm going to take GEs in college forever until I figure out what I want. So I was fine with switching paths, but that was my goal, my North Star, until I eventually switched. And I kind of took some alternative interests in undergrad. I was a chemistry major, and the organic synthesis class was a big turn on for me that I really thought, working in a lab and doing biochemistry stuff could be pretty cool. We got to fabricate drugs in the lab and work. We got to go tour the Pfizer facility across the street, which was just, I was in awe. You look at this, you walk in this room where there's millions of dollars of equipment on the wall. But eventually got into the Pre-Dental Society at UCSD, which honestly, being one of the biggest ones in the country, gave me a lot of eye-opening chair-side dentistry experience. I got to work in the free clinic, being a dental assistant. That was my first really hands-on experience in dentistry. Since I never really needed much dental work, I didn't actually know what dentists did with their hands on a daily basis. I know you teach stuff, right?
Yeah.
But my very first dental assisting day, I got to assist on a root canal, and I'm probably just staring. I'm more of a spectator than actually suctioning. But I thought this is the coolest thing I've ever seen, and I was like, that kind of like turned me on to, hey, this general dentistry thing is pretty cool.
Nice.
And then you get to go ahead.
Get into it and do it all. I was the same way. Never had much dental stuff in my life. And my mom worked at a dental office, and my aunt was a hygienist. So I thought dentistry was hygiene, right? And go in,
Right.
clean my teeth, and leave, and same kind of idea. So once you kind of get into it, it just opens up. So you stuck with the GP path then, or not an orthodontist, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I got to dental school and start doing, learning everything about dentistry because you got to go through that first and realize, this general dentistry thing is really pretty cool. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of things you can do. And then I realized orthodontics is kind of boring. Like you don't really do anything. You bend wires, your assistants do all the work for you. Like I don't think I could do that all day, every day.
For sure. I married an orthodontist, so we actually met in dental school. She went back for orthodontics, and I'm like, all right, man, I got it made. I'm gonna retire and go from there. And now we got a son, and she loves it. She enjoys doing that. But she's coming into our practice doing their thing too. So cool. So you jumped in with your parents and got their practice kind of taken over. Are you at the helm now, or are they still helping out? What's your business?
Yeah. So did a residency for a year, AEGD, and then I've been in the practice now just over 10 years. Just kind of merged in as an associate. They weren't ready to retire yet, so kind of added on. And they had another associate too. So it's a group practice. There's a couple of us doctors. I just kind of added on 2 days a week, had a bunch of other little jobs here and there, kind of pieced together like most people do in the Southern California market. You don't know, nobody here walks out of school and into a full-time job. It doesn't really work that way. So I worked in like 8 different offices in the first few years until eventually I had enough patient base to kind of hop in full time as my parents were starting to step back. So my brother also works with us part time. He's been with us a couple of years. We got another associate. My parents have kind of just really slowly been phasing out. My mom just retired a year or two ago. My dad's slowly stepping down. He's down to like 2.5 days a week, which for being 72 years old is pretty good, but he loves it. I don't think he'll literally ever retire. And, so I'm mostly managing things. I kind of transitioned into the partnership aspect right about the same time our a longtime office manager was retiring. So the first year or two in partnership, I was learning a lot from her, and then she left, and a lot of these duties kind of fell into my lap. Like she did everything for the practice. She managed and ran so many business decisions that my parents were just kind of hands off in that aspect. So it was a little bit trial by fire, even though it was an existing dental practice that I had to learn a lot of things pretty quickly and figure stuff out because I was now the leadership more or less. So 50-50 partner with my parents. I would say I do 80 to 90% of the management, day-to-day leadership operations type stuff now, even though we do have a new office manager. So like I said, the Business of Dentistry Facebook page was a big learning experience for me of just knowing what's out there, what kind of decisions we got to make on a daily basis, how to deal with things, and what options there are for dealing with problems.
Yeah. Nice. Get in with family. I mean, that's always something kind of unique and obviously very common in the dental field, right? I'm married to a dentist. A lot of people, parents are dentists and things like that. Tell me a little bit about that dynamic coming into, the practice and I imagine trying to mold it into your vision now, right? Some changes that you've had.
I could write a book on that topic. And I think, I'll try to condense it way down to not talk everybody's ear off, but there's so many aspects to that where everybody in school was like jealous that I had parents that I could go learn from and get out and they're going to teach me the business side and I'm going to teach them the new stuff. And I love my parents, but I'm a very like techie guy. I'm a very up to date, very, this is the new modern way of doing things. I'm very heavy into CE. I walked out of school and there, to be honest, wasn't a whole lot my parents could teach me about dentistry other than here's how to get a broken root out because you've only done this 17 times in your entire dental school career. And so there wasn't a whole lot they were teaching me. I learned a little bit about, Invisalign from my mom. She did a lot of ortho cosmetics type stuff. But for the most part, I was teaching a lot of them more of the newer things, intraoral scanners. I kind of pushed the practice into digital technology a couple of years out of school. We got into CEREC, which was a game changer for the practice, especially a larger group practice. In the management stuff, like I said, they didn't do a lot of it. I mean, I learned a few things, hiring, firing, tips, techniques, but most of that I kind of either picked up from the office manager or learned and figured out on my own or from Facebook pages. So that's the learning aspect. And I think a lot of people, my colleagues, didn't see some of those aspects. The other aspect that I would say it's worth sharing with a lot of people is, and I see this with so many people, my colleagues included, when you get out and you go to work for a dentist and they promise you ownership and they say, yep, we'll sell it to you soon. When I retire, come work for me now, and then eventually I'll sell it to you. I work with my parents and I deal with this problem and I have to love them. And I've been in the practice for 12 years and I'm still a 50% partner. And my dad is 71 and will never retire. So when
Right.
somebody says, look, I've worked as an associate for 2 years and I don't know if this 81-year-old is ever going to retire, the answer is he won't. So I'll just cut to the chase. So seriously, several of my colleagues have this problem. And my one big advice I could give to anybody getting out there is if you have some dentist that's not literally ready to leave now, just be prepared that by the time they back off a little bit and let you start working, they get really comfortable. They don't want to leave. So if there's nothing written in writing about them selling to you on an X time frame, major red flag.
There you go.
So I got very bitter. It actually kind of strained the relationship a little bit between me and my dad when, look, I want to be an owner. I want more ownership. I want more ownership. It was 30% at first, and then it was 50%. And then, okay, what about the rest of it? And it just kind of, I've made peace now where I'll be 50% owner until my parents croak. I hope they live a long time, but
Yeah. Oh goodness, man. So that seems like a big piece. Do you feel like you've done anything or can give some people advice kind of going into your situation to make it, a successful transition without having those hard times? Because you hear about it the other way as well. And then how you kind of went about making your peace. I mean, what does that look like? And any advice you can give to people on that front?
wow, I don't know. How do you make peace? That's what yoga masters spend their whole lives teaching, right? I don't know. I think you live and learn. You what's that one proverb? Like you accept the things you cannot change. You change what you can.
Yeah, yeah, I
You
know.
know what? I do what I can, but it's literally been like years, 5 years. We've kind of had this slow discussion. I became a partner in 2018, and I've just accepted the fact that, look, it is what it is. I do most of the management. A lot of the growth I feel like in the practice really is from me. I can't force my parents out. If I've kind of tried and nudged, and it just makes them upset and angry that I'm forcing them out. And it's not going to make anyone happy in the long term. So the only advice I'd have for other people is try to make expectations clear up front. And, even though I think we did that, my dad's vision for the practice is for myself and my brother to be 50-50 partners forever, take over the family practice. And, I'll kind of summarize it that I think him and I have very different management styles. And I think most of us have kind of started to agree that maybe being 50-50 partners won't lead to a great long-term relationship between the two of us. So I think all of us have semi-accepted that maybe I should be more of an owner, have more management perspective or something in that regard. We just haven't worked out what the details are yet.
Gotcha.
Um, and I'll kind of come back to this topic later with another story. Don't get so caught up in what you think will happen or what your hopes and dreams are that you don't see what's really happening. And that's, what's written in paper. There is no written timeline when my parents will leave. There is no written expectation of anything, legally binding or not. My dad would say 5 more years, 5 more years, 5 more years. That 5 more years keeps chasing.
Keep
He
going.
said 2020 because that was 5 years away, and that was 4 years ago now, and here we are. So I'll stop that story, but you're going to hear it again, another story later. That don't don't get hyped up. Don't get over. Don't dream about what's going to happen. Don't get excited about what you think is going to happen. What's written, what's actually planned out. If you're getting into an associate agreement, what's in your contract, what's legally binding, and if they can't put that on paper and agree to it, it's probably not happening.
For sure. Yeah, the family aspect's huge. I mean, because you still have to show up to Thanksgiving, right? So you have that
Yeah.
there and do what you can and be cautious, right? When you get into those situations. My wife is just starting to work at our practice as well, just a couple days a week. And, we haven't written anything down either. And we always stayed away from doing that because we always said we loved each other too much to work together, like don't want to take
Mhm.
that home. But now that she's in a different area, orthodontics, right? That's kind of her path. And, we probably should sit down and have that conversation after talking with you of just saying, hey, what's it look like? Where's your, role start and end? Where does mine start and end? And how does that go together? So, on the kind of back to the practice here, you were talking about, pushing growth and bringing a lot of technology and changing things. Tell me a little bit about that. What's your office look like? What's a typical day? How many patients are you doing? How are you pushing this growth? Get into that a
Sure.
little bit if you could.
Yeah. Group practice, we're mostly out of network. We're only contracted with two insurances at the moment. My parents have kind of always had this higher end sort of feel to the office. I mean, they've been in network with insurances in the past. When they first started out, they had Medi-Cal Fridays to get the Medicaid patients in just to boost the practice. But over time, especially my mom kind of tweaked the practice and really focused more on, no, we do high quality dentistry here. We want our revenues to reflect that. She, would do a lot of the financial like management decisions of the practice and kind of push things that way. We were networked with Delta Premier for a long time. In 2019, we started the transition out. I had a consultant that kind of guided us. Part of that had to do with me buying in. I couldn't become, I just squeaked into the Delta Premier provider at the last moment. But over time, the new associates, which we knew were going to be coming as my parents retired, we couldn't do that. So we went out of network with them, which is a big decision. Again, I could probably write a whole book on that. The consultant we used was awesome. But we're now a group practice. I call it the equivalent of a three doctor practice. If you add up the number of doctor days per week, because everybody works 3 days a week pretty much at our office. And there's a total of like 4 to 5 general dentists, depending on how you count it. We got 2 part-time specialists. So we spend a lot of time with our patients. New patient exams are scheduled 90 minutes with the doctor. You come in, consultation with the patient, kind of chat with them, review medical history, what's important to you, and we literally spend a long time. Relationships are a big part of our practice. We get about average 60 new patients a month, which sounds like not much for a three doctor practice. And I'd like it to be more, but it's enough that it keeps the practice going. And actually, we are still growing a bit, even with that number. So marketing is a big thing for me the past 2 years, and it has been a very frustrating thing. I've learned a lot, and I still don't have the answers, but I at least kind of know what directions that I'm, starting to go with things. So we do a little bit of everything in our practice. And the nice thing about a group practice is everybody gets their little subspecialty. My brother Nick loves kids. Dr. Anna loves cosmetics, Invisalign, Botox. I love implants, like hands down, that is my favorite thing in the world. I like complex cases. I like the challenges of, how can we make things happen in a patient situation? What's the best situation for this complex care patient? But we do a little of everything. And by offering all those services in-house, it kind of helps keep the dollars per patient high enough that 16 new patients a month works for us.
Nice. Good. So, I mean, really kind of a neat dynamic there, right? Making that transition as you go, having enough of an office to be able to support all of those type of providers, a nice work-life balance, it seems, having 3 days a week. I'm on that schedule myself right now and kind of dreading thinking about going to 4 or 5 days as we grow, right? And trying to
Right.
keep that where it is. When you think about, especially in your market, right? Probably a very difficult market to be in, at least from what you hear. What do you think sets yourself apart, especially in the eyes of patients that are coming in and maybe even potential employees coming into your practice? What would you say that, kind of gives you that edge to be as successful as you guys have been in your market?
Culture and experience. Sorry, let me rephrase that. In terms of staff, we have a lot of long-term staff. It's the culture. It's we really care. My dad is a very like fatherly figure to a lot of these staff members, some of which have been on hard times in the past. We have between 10 and 20 staff members who have left at some point in their career and have come back to work for us, which just says a tremendous amount about the practice. We have a ton of long-term people. Our office manager was 34 years. We've had a couple of people retire with our practice, 30 plus years. It's the culture. It's how we all care about each other. It's not a burnout style high production practice. It's we do good dentistry. We take care of people. Everybody feels good at the end of the day. Nobody feels like we're manipulating everything. Patients, it's a good place to want to work for everybody, for the staff as well as for the doctors. Anybody in our practice probably could make more money at another office. I like to think we're above average, but and I'll tell this to anybody who's working for us or applying, we're not the highest paying office, but we're above average. And it's just the quality of the workday. And patients, I think, can feel that. We are a relationship-based practice. We spend time with patients. We connect. We do post-op calls in the evening. We really care. And we're not driven by the dollar, driven by what insurance covers. And that's part of the mantra of our practice. Our vision statement that we strive for that 5-star patient experience. And I think the Google reviews kind of speak to that. So patients come in and they comment on the Google reviews and they leave one afterwards. They had an amazing experience in our office. The one just last week was, I have never been to a dental office like this before. And my mom kind of had this comment a couple of weeks ago that a lot of, especially younger patients, will say in their 20s and 30s, maybe don't go to the dentist as much as they used to when they were kids because they don't have insurance, new jobs, move around. And then you, as a young adult, you go to a practice and you kind of assume this is how dental world is these days. And maybe you went to a corporate office that didn't have a great experience, but you kind of assume that's how things are. And you don't really realize what else is out there until you go to a different office and you say, oh, this feels a lot better than that one did. And in the Southern California market, like you said, it's competitive. There's a ton of people here. There's also a ton of people competing for that in-network bottom dollar insurance. And it just makes us look that much better when patients come in or they get referred in and see and feel the difference.
Nice. Focusing on the things that aren't the dentistry, right? Like giving
Yeah.
them that experience and making sure that, we're not educating them to death in clinical stuff, but giving them that experience. I think that's huge with the reviews. You're in the online world, right? We're in all these groups. We see stuff. We were talking about how, sometimes you get really, really good content and engagement, and other times you get just horrible stuff, just toxic. You want to stay away from it online. From your perspective, I mean, what are some things that dentists are maybe doing out there that could be hindering their success? Right? What are some things that they should maybe stop doing and maybe start focusing more on?
Stop doing, you mean in their practice, like with patient care?
Yeah, exactly. Just to, kind of have that feeling of success, right? A lot of times they get bogged down and they just complain, 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 insurance patients, staff. What is something that maybe they could do to change or improve on or stop doing to give them that edge that they might be looking for?
So the answer is going to sound kind of like a dodge, but I think the answer is always it depends. And I think one of the reasons consultants can be successful is when consultants come in and evaluate you and your practice and what's working versus not working. Every person has a different answer of what's holding them back. I mean, sometimes you might see a lot of similarities, but I feel like, and this is again coming from my perspective of being mostly out of network, that trying to stay in network, trying that scarcity mentality of, oh, I need more new patients, oh, I need this, I need that, you know, will hinder people. And I'm not saying insurance isn't the answer. I think it's the mentality is the answer that I need to take, that I need to do more. Through my associate, I know of another doctor who is unfortunately kind of running that insurance race and aging herself and just burning herself out and working so much that she doesn't have time to grow and invest in technology and has a steric machine sitting in the corner of the room that's not being used because she doesn't have time to use it and learn it. And it's, perspective, I think, shares a lot. And the perspective of me working in 8 different practices, my first few years out of school, I learned a lot about how different offices operate. I really did. And it was so eye-opening. And, my brother was forced into that too. He went to go work for Pacific Dental Services the first few months out of school. And that perspective tells you a lot. My mantra kind of in life, when you don't have, like, let's say, how do you grow a business? And some people are going to cut costs, cut costs, cut costs. Well, you can't cut enough costs to make more money. My answer has always been, well, make more money first, and that takes care of all the other problems.
Yeah.
I know that's not the easy answer. I've been trying to do this for the past several years in the practice, and it wasn't until this year things feel like they're finally taken off. But, I'm staring at this overhead, especially practice labor. In Southern California, it's expensive to have employees, and we're chasing this, try to keep your overhead under control. Well, I can't cut all their salaries. That's not going to work. I can't have less assistants. I mean, believe me, I'd like to because I feel like they're standing around sometimes. But making more money solves all those problems. How can we produce more? How can we market and grow more? That's how I solve those problems.
Nice.
How can I expand more and do more? So that's kind of the opposite of the scarcity mentality, I guess, the abundance mentality.
Yeah.
There's more patients out there. We just have to find them and help them.
Be able to do it, right? Making those offers and perspective. I like that. I mean, I think that's huge, right? Really understanding what it is that you want in your personal life and then going out and building a plan and focusing on it, right? I think that's
Yeah.
huge. And like you mentioned, you can't save your way to wealth, right? Like you have to get out there and create something that's going to do it, and then being smart on the other side to kind of dial things in. So I know we're kind of winding down here. I wanted to finish up with our last couple things here, and obviously we appreciate your time. A lot of great insight here today. So we're going to wrap up here with what we call our 3X level up. So we're just going to go through, just try to get some quick answers from you, a couple little tips and tricks from you. So let's go ahead and start out with a tip or a tool that you couldn't live without. Anything that you feel helps you be more successful in life or business. What do you have for us?
I got a couple different perspectives. I'll start with saying outside the office, when I first got a smartphone that let me look up anything on the internet in the palm of my hand. I mean, I like knowing things. I'm a facts and data guy. You get in some, family conversation or conversation at the bar, discussion about something you're arguing, and be able to look it up and get instant advice or info in the palm of your hand instantly. Like that was a game changer for me. And I feel like I'd use it because I'll be during a dinner conversation, still scrolling, trying to find the answer to the conversation that happened 5 minutes ago. My wife has to take the phone from my hand, but you know, I that was huge. You have so much information in the palm of your hand. You can access it anytime. Use it. And I'll come back to that again here with our next level up. But inside the office, tips and tools, I would say cameras, intraoral scanners, mouthwatch, intraoral cameras, DSLR. I pushed heavily against getting an iTero. I don't believe in the align a company's their policies. I feel like they're not in the interest of dental dentists in general, but I won't close my mind to things that can be helpful. And we did get a demo lease. They'd have a program, and we tripled the amount of Invisalign cases we're doing. Just and our associate was a big help with that too. But the patient education tool aspect of that was tremendous, and it sells itself. It literally does. You know, when patients start looking at these things on the screen, they can relate to what they're looking at better than the mouthwatch cameras, better than the ugly DSLR that shows all of their teeth and they think it's ugly. They don't want to see it. Like the cartoonified tooth models help.
And I think that's your abundance point, right? Going in and saying, "Hey, we're going to try this out," and boom, you make that leap, and you're running a business, right? So you saw it kind of hit. So awesome, good tips and tools, a lot of technology. Make sure patients know what we got going on. Our next level up question is, what's a past failure or mistake that you think you've learned from, and is this something you think other dentists have struggled with?
So it's a really interesting like question, and I can't remember the last time anybody asked me that, but my first response was, I my first thought, I don't really think of any failures. And I don't mean that like in a way that say I'm better than anyone, I don't make mistakes, but to be honest, I don't ever really see them as failures. And it wasn't until you asked that I thought that I made that connection. You know, I literally don't see them as failures. I see them as not even mistakes necessarily either. They were really just learning steps, learning tools. And I'll give a few examples. You know, in dental school, we had our gold for investing, casting crowns. And that was like my first little turn on to like, oh, watching the price of gold. And it was skyrocketing when we had to buy it. Like it was a crazy experience. But then I got all excited and getting this hype about investing in gold and silver. It was hype. And, and I could hear people talk all day about why gold and silver is such a great investment tool. And I remember going to my uncle who's also invested in some gold and silver, and he kind of was cautioning me, and I was, still invested in the hype. And I invested a bunch of, ironically, my student loan money essentially at that point into gold and silver. And, 5 years goes by and it hasn't changed in price at all. Okay, well, was that a failure? I guess. I mean, it was a learning mistake, I guess. But I will tell you, I now have a much different perspective of hype and investment, and watch out what people are telling you, because anybody can tell you anything, but they don't know. And, do your due diligence. And so that was one. And working in all the offices that I did fresh out of school, 8 different offices. Some of them were terrible. Medi-Cal based practice, really shady business practices. Like, was it a mistake? Was it a failure? No, it was a learning opportunity. You know what? And you can learn from anyone, anytime. My dad had said that a long time ago, or for a long time. I now know what other offices are out there. I know what patients are dealing with and going through. I know what I want my office to not be like. So, I mean, honestly, like I still see them as positives. I spent working in an office 2 days a week, and I saw one patient in 3 months. Why did it take me so long? Well, that was the hype. I was really excited to work for this guy. He was a prosthodontist. I didn't see the contract. They took a while to get it to me, but it wasn't until I saw words on paper and an attorney helped me review it and say, you know what, this is not the job for you. I was just too excited. I was worked up. I really wanted to work there. Oh, I didn't know I was creating my own practice within his office. He was not giving me any patients. That wasn't in writing in the beginning.
The catch. Nice. I think get back to perspective. That's huge, especially online, right? You get that comparison and, hey, I'm not doing this. I'm a failure doing other things. I think that's great, man. I mean, being able to have that perspective can really drive your success and keep you moving in line. So awesome. All right. Next level up question. Some advice for your younger self, right? What advice would you give your younger self knowing what you know today? What do you got?
There's a couple. I would say advice mostly for my younger self. I was a lot more shy when I was younger, not very outgoing. Especially high school, college, I lived off campus, didn't have much of a social life, didn't really connect and network with people. I am inherently an introvert. I don't do well in large gatherings with people I don't know. But to be honest, and you hear people say this online all the time, your network is your net worth. I mean, the people you know, the people you connect with really does make a difference. In my case, my connecting has been mostly in online forums. But hey, when I go to these venues and events and I run into people and they say, hey, I mean, I remember running into a guy from Keep Sarah King, Greg Campbell, and he saw my name tag and he's like, Robert Jungman, how's it going? And I'm looking at this guy like, you know me? I'm a person that someone recognizes. Like that was a really big feeling. But you can learn at every opportunity. You can learn from anyone, even people you disagree with, even people who you think are less than you, even people, your staff members, your team members. You can learn from everybody. If you aren't learning and growing, you're not going anywhere. And I actually reflect on this sometimes that this circle of life, everybody is born, you grow and you learn. I have kids now who are 2 and 4 years old. We're teaching them how to say words and how to eat food and tie your shoes and get dressed. You spend your entire life learning, and the faster you can learn, the more you can learn. How does Elon Musk get where he is? He has a tremendous number of people that educate him on all of these things so he can know lots of things and make bigger level decisions and stuff like that. So anybody in life, just keep learning. The more you learn, the more you know, the more successful you can be. Like I said, I'm a knowledge and data guy. Just hanging out in these online forums has been so informational for me that I can make high level business decisions now that my parents don't, because they don't have that network of people to.
Awesome.
So it's big. And then one more little tip for, both my younger self, but I'll say just dentists in general. You get out of school and you're practicing, you're working, and you're trying to save money. I won't get into like financial advice for everybody because everybody has different perspectives. But I'll at least have to share my perspective in this regard that, a lot of people are so focused on saving taxes, saving money in taxes, saving for retirement. You and I commented earlier about you can't save your way to wealth. You can't cut costs to get wealthy. You got to take steps. You got to do other things. My perspective, and again, this is coming from, I don't want to, cut costs to make money. I'd rather grow, is by investing, by having side gigs for some people. In my case, my family's case, it's always been real estate. I will not make money. I will not get to the end of my career and say I'm wealthy because I was a dentist. I will say I'm wealthy because I invested in real estate and dentistry helped. And, people like sell their practice thinking here's what's going to be my retirement. I don't actually even really care what my practice will sell for. I really don't. It's just a number. It's more of like, that'll be a nice little icing on top. I want to have my financial, my nest egg, so to speak. I want to be making money off investment properties before I get to retirement, to the point where I can work and do dentistry because I want. So I think don't forget that saving money your entire career and putting money into a little pot of IRA or 401k or something is going to magically make you rich when you retire. So be thinking about that. And the investment of time with money over time is really big. So thinking about your side gigs, your other opportunities, business ventures, things like that.
Nice. Young dentists, listen up. I mean, a lot of knowledge here, especially if you have family in the dental field. Robert is probably a great person to talk to here. His mindset, his perspective is fantastic on all of this. Here at the end, what he was talking about there is when you really get down to talking about how to set yourself up for the long term. I believe it now more than ever, and we met online in these groups and so many other people that I've met. But really, at the end of the day, your network is your net worth, right? The people that you know, the people that you can learn from. Make sure you reach out to Robert in these groups. There's so many great people, so many great connections that we've made. He's here to help. Everybody else out there is as well. And being on the Nifty Thrifty Podcast, we talked about not saving your last dollar. There's a difference between being nifty thrifty and being dentist cheap. Right? There's a huge difference there. And so, going out, not being afraid to invest in something, as long as you've done your due diligence and make sure we don't have that Sarek sitting in the corner, get out there, put it to work, do what you can, have a great practice, have a great life. Robert, I really appreciate you being here with us today. This is one of the first ones I've done as well. So hopefully this goes really, really well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate the chit chat.
All right, Robert. Well, we'll go ahead and finish up. We'll see everybody here next time. Thanks for joining us today. See you guys later.